Good evening, everybody. Just get everyone, if you're having a seat right now, if you're able to, if you can just stand up for the moment. I'd like to thank you all for being here with us, and I would like to start this evening by acknowledging that we live and work on unceded Sinixt Tumula, and we welcome Elder and Smum Matriarch of Autonomous Sinixt Marilyn James and Autonomous Sinixt Matriarch Taress Alexis to this museum, and thank them for permitting us to operate on this Tumula. Before we begin this evening's proceedings, I ask that Elder Marilyn James please come forward to accept this gift and provide a welcome to the Tumula. We offer the ancestors this tobacco and ask that they bless the newly established relationship between the Autonomous Sinixt and the museum, and that it might help people learn more about the Sinixt, and that we come into right relationship with the people of the Sinixt.
I'd like to say welcome to the Tumhula for this gathering and for this establishment, this institution that holds the history of this community and also is entering into a good relationship to hold the history of the Sinixt and to become that cornerstone of education for people to come and witness and view our presence here and in this landscape. And I'm happy to receive this tobacco because it is a blessing. Coming into right relationship has been a process. We're continuing this process. It's refreshing because we've had many not very good relationships with museums and the flattening of the true history of this landscape. And when you flatten that history, it flattens it for everybody, not just the Sinixt people. It flattens it for the very people who call this place home. So I accept this tobacco, and I would like to just offer this little prayer. That's north. That's north. I get directionally challenged. Kunchuten, thank you for the blessing of this day. Kunchuten, thank you for the blessing of this life. Kunchuten, I asked and give you this tobacco on behalf of this place called Rossland Museum, for the relationship that we're entering into, for the trust and care of these ancestor baskets here, for the path we pave in good relations, not just between us, but for all, to create that relationship and demonstrate what that means. We offer this tobacco plum shooting to the north, and to the east, and to the south, and to the west. And to our sacred mountains we're working, and we say, Lamland, 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 Lamland. White.
And I'd like to take this moment to invite KL, author, publisher, and assistant to Matriarch Marilyn James, to speak on the Autonomous Sinixt Land Declaration.
The Land Declaration of the Sinixt has been a project very dear to Marilyn's heart in particular, because what it represents is bringing back up the governing body, the Smum governing body of the Sinixt, and saying very clearly to the whole world that this is our Tumhula, and these are our laws, and this is our within our jurisdiction, and this is what we expect of everybody who's here, and how people treat the land. The coastal nations who are not involved in the treaty process have also been creating land declarations as an alternative to colonial governing processes. And so the Sinixt now join various nations who have issued land declarations and stand by them. And it's a historic moment, because it feels like a really, really important moment to see Marilyn and Taress sign the declaration, and then it becomes an instrument that we can use to let the whole world know this is what we stand for in very clear, articulated terms. And it also means that all of the people who have been operating in this Tuamulau without taking responsibility for where they are and what they're doing, not holding accountability for various kinds of resource extraction, we can now serve them notice under the laws of Smum that things need to change. This is a turning point, and I eagerly await having a stack of copies to put out into the world. And I'm so very grateful to be able to do it here at the Rossland Museum in Rossland. Rossland, I tell people, Rossland is on fire for the Autonomous Sinixt, for things Sinixt, everything from local government to trail society to museum. It's an honor to witness settlers stepping up in very real ways to honor that. So I think this is a good place for this to start. And yeah, I invite Marilyn and Taress up to sign the land declaration. And for those who are listening to this remotely or digitally, the land declaration will be available to view on the new Sinixt.org website, which should be live in the next couple of weeks. So that's a good place for people to go and take a look at it, see what it contains. And I'd like to do a special thank you to Skylar for having designed it for us, for actually having laid it out on the page and made it pretty.
Here.
Go ahead. And just so you know, the kickoff to this document is our laws. The Wicklockin is the first law. That's the law of the land. That's what guides and directs Smum. We hold the responsibility, but the laws are everybody's responsibility to come into line with those laws. And unlike the colonial laws that umbrella all of us, these are true laws that serve all of us, not just certain ones. And we all hold a responsibility for the sustainability of this place we call home. So these aren't suggestion kind of laws. These are true laws. That's so beautiful. Thank you, Scott.
Oh, thank you. All right. And Sarah, if we could have you come up and take a moment to speak on the Memorandum of Understanding.
So, on behalf of the staff and board of the Rossland Museum, it has been my privilege to be part of the museum's effort to build and strengthen a right relationship with the Autonomous Sinixt. And to do that, because we recognize our responsibility of operating on the Tuamulau of the Autonomous Sinixt. So, part of that The Autonomous Sinixt have requested that the Rossland Museum become a repository for the cultural assets of the Autonomous Sinixt. And this is an incredible honor for the museum and also for the community of Rossland. And we're humbled that we can help care for and protect Sinixt cultural objects within their tumula to keep them here on the land that they've come from. To formalize our partnership, we have collaboratively developed an MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding, with the Autonomous Sinixt, which will ensure the care of these cultural assets, current and future, and help the Autonomous Sinixt in their efforts to share their traditional knowledge from their perspective, and to help strengthen the relationship between the museum and the Autonomous Sinixt. So we're going to sign the Memorandum of Understanding tonight. We really look forward to the outcomes of it and just working with the Autonomous Sinixt to build a repository, and especially to actually do the work of caring for and protecting Autonomous Sinixt cultural assets here at the museum. So, Marilyn, are there things you would like to say as well?
I'd just like to say, you know, these kinds of agreements are necessary because here we're transferring these ancestors. These are our personal family baskets. This basket is a cedar root basket that's 500 years old. It is the surviving one of a pair of saddlebags. This is a corn husk basket. It's gorgeous. I hate to touch it too much, but it's about 350 years old. So this is the design on one side, and this is the design on the other side. And the buckskin handles, and you know, these beautiful things need to be cared for, but we also understand they need to be shared. We cannot, it would be like leaving our elders, our children in the care of someone who could care less, who doesn't know how to love them, who doesn't know how to respect them, who doesn't know how to hold responsibility. You know, sadly, these baskets were on display at the Touchstone Museum in Nelson. We have tried to create a right relationship with the Touchstone Museum for a long period of time. It finally got to a point where it was just heartbreaking, and we felt that every day these baskets called for us, come and get me, come and get me, come and get me. So in the very heat of the summer, I asked for the return of them. The staff met us at the door. They didn't even bring us in the building. We had to take them and receive them out on the street, basically. And that's how it was. And so I'm very glad that these ancestors are going to have a home. We're going to be able to share them. They're not leaving our family. They belong to my daughters now, and they'll make those decisions in the future. And you know, we just thought that this was an honorable thing to do, and to have them be in a place where they can be shared and have that love and appreciation. So this MOU is the beginning with these, and we hope many artifacts and many treasures that will come and be part of the sharing from this place that has the dignity, the integrity to enter into these agreements in a serious way. And for that, we hold our hands up and we say, lim, 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 lim.
I think we're going to have Mike Sloan representing our board and Marilyn sign the document.
Okay.
I just wait. Okay, wonderful, lovely. And I think a good signature and yours. Thank you so much. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very excited.
Again, thank you very much for signing that, Marilyn, and thank you for representing us and signing that as well. Alright, so the third part of our evening is to celebrate another pretty amazing feat. Not Extinct has had its second edition come out. This is the book written by both Marilyn James as well as Taress Alexis. Very excited to get a chance to be the place where we launch the second edition here. And I believe we are going to have a publisher from Law Press, KL, come back up maybe to speak on this as well again. And maybe a word from Marilyn as well afterwards. Thank you, Kev.
Okay. So when we started working on the Not Extinct project, it was a group of us called the Blood of Life Collective, which included Marilyn and Taress. There was such a hunger for materials about the Sinixt in this community. So much so that we sold out the first printing in 3 years. So as a publisher, that had never happened. That had never happened before. And so we had this opportunity to improve on the first edition, which was an amazing process. And we went back into studio and we recorded 3 stories. We removed 3 of the previous stories, so it's different. We included 9 new pieces of artwork. We added much more material, contemporary material. We updated the language in the book. Things with the Sinixt are moving quickly. Things are changing. People are stepping up. Since 2018, when the first edition was published, there's been this just upwelling of people wanting to be in right relationship, to take responsibility for where they are and who they're with there. And I'd say the 2 things have sort of accelerated that. One is the COVID era, which sent everybody into their homes initially, and having, not me, but lots of other people had more time to think and contemplate and maybe get to projects and things that they hadn't been able to get to before. And that coincided with the death of Floyd George. George Floyd, sorry. Keeps flipping in my brain. And the rise of the Black Lives Matters movement again. And those 2 things, plus the truth and reconciliation movement in Canada, seem to have created some synergy where not everybody, a lot of people were stepping forward going, show me, teach me. And so this project is being part of that. And the second edition, you'll notice it's a little bit different. Actually, I should grab the first edition so you can see how it's different. You can play that game. There's 5 different things on the cover and 5 different things on the back cover, spot the differences. So somebody from Fernwood Publishers is a political publisher based in Manitoba and Halifax gave me advice on how to do this, like what needs to be changed, what needs to remain the same. There's a whole formula, who knew? The main thing is the water turned red, and unfortunately we lost the osprey, so I've given away 2 things, but it's the same book, only stronger and bolder and better than before. And there's also some new settler reflections in it, and yeah, overall it's just a book that has so much to offer. One of the pieces that didn't get included in the first edition is material on residential schools. It's a very tender topic for a lot of Indigenous people, and certainly for Marilyn and Taress and their families. And we decided that even though it was a hard thing to include and to discuss, that it was important for Marilyn to tell the story of her mom's residential school experience. And the artwork over here is by a Spokane Valley artist, Natasha Smith. These are 215 little ferns that are gradually being eaten away by this blackness that's arising, and you can see what's happened to them over here. The 215 number, of course, is the number of bodies exhumed at the Kamloops Indian Residential School, which Marilyn's mom attended. So there's a tie-in there. So I will leave it at that, and let Marilyn talk about a little bit about her mom's residential school experience and what we can explore around that.
I used to work for Kamloops Indian Band, and I was actually trying to develop the tripartite agreement between the RCMP and Kamloops Indian Band. And every day I would go to work and try to create this cohesiveness in this agreement between policing and the RCMP and the band. And I tried doing that for a lot of years, but my mom would come and visit me there. And one day she was at the house, and I said, "Hey, Mom, why don't you come and we'll have lunch?" And she's all for it. She says, "Sure, we'll go have lunch." And I was working in this little house, this little shack with a native RCMP guy called Ernie Oates, and my mom came by the house and she says, "Well, where are we gonna go for lunch?" And I said, "Oh, you know, Laura Jewell, she's a KIB member, and she made soup and sandwiches and ran it out of the kitchen of the residential school." I said, and I like to support local, I like to patronize local people, and you know, it was it was mom, no pops there at all. It wasn't even a mom and pops. It was just a bowl of soup, cold cut sandwich. You could buy a bag of chips and a drink. And I said to Mom, "Let's go support Laura." And Mom, you know, very quietly agreed, okay. And, you know, of course, I'm just going like I always do. "Oh, this is what's going on, and I'm so frustrated, and blah, 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 blah." And we get our sandwiches and have them in the tray, and we go into the cafeteria part. And Mom's sitting there, and she's looking around, and looking around, and looking around, and I'm ripping into my sandwich, and crumbs are flying, and I'm, you know, still just talking about everything that's going on. And I notice she's looking around. She hasn't touched anything. I said, "Mom, what's wrong?" She said, "It's like this, a little bit smaller than that pole right there, that cement pole." She said, "You see that pole right there?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "My friend, one of the brothers took my friend, and he was sitting at the table goofing off, and the brothers picked him up and slammed him against the pole." She said, "We thought he was dead. He was bleeding from the ears. He wasn't moving." we couldn't, they wouldn't let us go help him. She said, they made us eat. She says, I could hardly swallow. She said, pretty soon, he started moving. And he slowly got up and he went back to his seat. And she said he was never the same after that. I said, I'm so sorry, Mom. Let's leave. And my mom, amazingly strong woman, you know, at that point, probably in her 70s, was transported right back to that time that she witnessed that. She never really talked about it. Those old gals would come, Eva, Annie Kruger, my mom, would sit around the camp and they'd joke about some of the things they'd do to the priests and the nuns at the residential school. They'd laugh about it and they'd say, oh, when we worked in the laundry, we'd go in with a needle and thread and we'd sew the sleeves, easy stitch the sleeves and the necks of their night shirts. And so when they went to put their night clothes on, they couldn't take their heads down or put their arms through. And, you know, that's a child responding in the only way that they can, and in that humor and way that they could imagine doing that. Now, you know, we've always known those bodies were there. As a child of a survivor of residential school, you know, we've always known there were bodies there. So the uncovering of those bodies at Kamloops Indian Residential School was no surprise to us. And just this last week, 93 bodies being identified at the Williams Lake Residential School, and of course, those hundreds of bodies back in Saskatchewan. You know, these are very traumatic experiences. And that is just my mom. That trauma was experienced, not just that boy that got thrown against the pole, not just my mom who witnessed it, but every child that was in that room. And that's one incident. So the other day, I was talking to the Human Rights Commission team, and they asked me to write a comment on COVID hate. I said, you know, I'm not sure I'm the right measuring stick for hate, because I can hate every day. It's not like there's, you know, compared to everybody else who might be experiencing it on a elevated level because of COVID, I experience it from the settler community every day. I not only experience it from the settler community every day, I experience it from my own community in terms of lateral violence and subaltern oppression every day. And then the other day, Lori Buckley receives a 480-page document from the archives and sends them out. I couldn't even open it. And Taress went in and started looking through those documents, which was the targeted extinction of the Sinixt people from the late 1800s to the time that they extincted us in 1956. And Taress would call me, "You wouldn't believe the shit that's in that document. It is so hateful and evil." And I said to the Human Rights Commission, when you have a document from the government that targets you for extinction, and at the highest level, you're experiencing that level of hate. And when you bring that hate forward to last summer, and the leader of this country can fly right over the top of Kamloops Residential School and go to Tofino to vacation, how do you think the general population is going to feel or think is the correct way to respond? Is the empathy there? Is the concern there? Is there a way that we can move forward from this trauma, from the history? The only way that we can move forward is to continue to tell those painful stories, to expose the things that happened. It's individually how people take those things and integrate them into all of these issues to move through that history to a better place where right relations become the way we practice our lives, the way we engage with each other. The thing I told the Human Rights Commission, every time something good happens for Indian people, believe me, this isn't a good thing. Uncovering hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of children's bodies isn't a good thing. It's horrible. However, it's a good thing that many families and people who have the experience of residential school can say, now everybody knows the truth. Now everybody can think, oh, we're not just lying Indians. We don't know what we're talking about. That never was that bad. Now everybody can know. Some people can finally breathe a sigh of relief in their grief and say, now we know. Is the Pope going to release the records? Is the federal government going to release the records? Even though Justin Trudeau said they did not. We'll never know how those kids died. We'll know they went there, and we'll know they died. And those names can be released to their communities, to their families, and they'll know. Then those families can do their pilgrimages or anything they need to do. Now, what I told the Human Rights Commission is, all we have to do is wait for the next shoe to drop. Because every time something good happens to Indian people, the backlash happens. So, that's what we have to look forward to. Hopefully, these kinds of exposures, these kinds of stories, in the way that people educate themselves, we won't have to be alone when we stand up. We won't have to face these things or the backlash. We won't be the only ones answering to it. We'll have allies. We'll have support. And we'll have people who aren't afraid to say, hey, wait a minute. This is the way we move forward in good relation. This is the way we face our history. So that's why we felt it was really important to include that story in the second edition. Because the chapticles, the creation stories are lovely. The landscape is here. You can see it. It's how we know who we are. But we're not just then, at the beginning. We're here now, and when we take these stories and we bring us to now, that's also a way for our people to move out of the past and into the present. And even though that's my mom's story, you know, she died in her 80s and she's been gone, geez, Drake's what, 1920? So 18 years ago? And that's her experience. That experience, and part of what we're being exposed to is, even though she survived that experience, and many did not, that experience didn't end with her. It came to me. It came to Taress. It's going to continue. We're going to work on the cycles that those kinds of experiences perpetuate. And even though we can be different, what can't be different is the pain. Because that was my mama. So, thank you for hearing my mom's story. There will be more and more and more bodies uncovered. I'd like to tell on the Tanaha now, but I won't. I'll just leave it for another time. Yes.
Marilyn, I have a request.
Yes.
Did you also briefly tell the story of what happened when your mom discovered that some of your siblings were being abused at the residential school that they were sent to?
Oh, yes. I never could understand this, but it's before I went to school. My mom sent my two sisters and my brother to St. Mary's Mission residential school on the Colville Reservation. Again, a Catholic school. And my mom knew stuff. I mean, she was a seer. So one day, at this school where the kids were, or my brother and two sisters were, parents aren't allowed to just go there anytime. You're not allowed to go pick up your kids, take them out. You're not even allowed to visit. You're not allowed to drop in. And so this one day, she got up, she got ready, she got in the car, and she went up to St. Mary's Mission. And up until then, my mom was a Catholic. She went in and she says, I want to see my kids. And the priest told her, oh no, you can't see your kids. She says, no, I want to see my kids right now. I'm taking them home. No, you can't, he says. And so she says, oh yes, I can, and I will, and you go get my kids right now. And so Stuart and Cindy and Dell were rounded up, and they were brought over, and my brother was beaten up pretty badly. And she said, go get your stuff, you're coming home with me. And the priest said, no, you can't do that. And she says, oh yes, I can. And she gathered up her kids, and she took them home, and she defected from the Catholic faith and became a Pentecostal practitioner. And then we all went to public school after that. I always wondered why Mom, who had that experience, would expose her kids to a residential school. And it's because she hoped things were different. When you have a belief in a religion, a spiritual practice, a way you see time move past, you see progress being made, you think things are better. And then they're not. And so, you know, yes, we went to public school. Yes, there was prejudice. Yes, to all that stuff. But good for Mom that, you know, in a way, she could take an action against something that hadn't changed. And even though she laid all of her hopes that it had, and jeopardized the safety of her children on that hope, a dashed hope, it still, you know, is a possibility. Which is my hope too. Which is Teresa's hope too for her two children. You know, as we come up and we lay our hope out there, it's also us laying our hearts out there and our belief that things can be better and things can change. And that's what we have. That's what we have to work with. And as long as we keep trying, and we're hoping everybody keeps trying, and the progress that we make here and there, whether it's our land declaration or an MOU with this institution, still, everybody, we can do our work. But if our work can ripple and spread, and then those changes can, you know, make those little incremental changes. So that's what she did when she was older. She wasn't a kid no more. And by the way, I defected from the Pentecostal church at age 13. So I don't think that story's in there. No. It'll be in the next one. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
So Marilyn references the next one. We are actually actively working on Marilyn's memoir, and a lot of her stories will be in that. It will also be a very unique book in that it will be primarily graphic art with some text embedded and then a whole lot of audio files. So who knows how long it will take to manifest that, but it's one of our many projects, and it's a great honor for me to work with Marilyn and Taress and the Autonomous Sinixt and everybody else who steps up to be part of this whole movement forward into a vision of a place that we'd all rather live in than the current situation. So thank you everybody for coming. And Not Extinct is available on the Mob Press website. It's also available here at the Rossland Museum and other museums and tourist centers and bookstores around the Tumhulau and beyond. And it comes with audio files, so make sure you download the audio files to listen to the stories rather than just reading the little summaries that are here. Okay.
You should plug the website because
Okay. So another one of the many things we've done is that Blood of Life Collective, in partnership with the Silicon Valley Community Arts Council, we've turned the art exhibit that happened from the art in Not Extinct by the Grand Forks Gallery into a website. So it's a virtual exhibit. It's keepingthesinixtway.ca. There's no www in the front. It just goes from all those HTTPs into keepingthesinixtway.ca. And you can listen to the stories, you can view the art, and there's also a language page where you can click on the icons, whether it's a sturgeon or Frog Mountain, and hear the words spoken. This is the first of the resources that we're providing as part of the language revitalization that Marilyn and now Taress are working intensively on, and it's an opportunity to bring the language of this land back to this land. And plug for Louis, thank you for coming along. Louis' photograph illustrates one of the new stories in this edition, why chico lose their needles, that's larch. So, thanks Louis.
Audiobook?
Audiobook, oh, okay. So 2022 seems to be, the first half seems to be the season of fruition. So the other thing that's happening, and this is also a Louis connection, we got connected up with a company in Toronto called Legible, and they create audiobooks for all formats. So you don't need a special reader to read them. You can read them on any device whatsoever. And they're calling them all kinds of things like living books. They're not just a traditional ebook. They're designed to be super accessible, and they also embed audio and visual files. So Louis did 3 films of Marilyn that he produced. They're beautiful little vignettes to go with the book, and if you scroll across words in the book, you can hear them, and there's the audio stories. It will be launched probably in the spring, March or April, we're looking at, and it'll be an international launch. So this is a huge deal. We'll see what it looks like, but it's a groundbreaking technology around doing ebooks differently. So that's also in the works. Am I missing something? Anything else? Ollie's film?
Oh, yeah.
So the other fruition, this is the season of fruition. Actually, I should mention Laurie's book too. So there's a new book called The Slocan Sinixt, which is written by Cole Harris, who's a professor emeritus of geography at UBC. It's written by Laurie and also by Nathan Goodale and Alyssa Nyman, who are the archaeologists who work at the Slocan Narrows Archaeological Project. And so that should be out this month, actually. It's due out. And the final great thing that's coming to fruition is, after 27 years of working on it, Ali Kashmi, the Governor General winning filmmaker from Toronto, is coming out with a film about the Sinixt called Beyond Extinction. Sinixt Resurgence, I think, is the subtitle, and that will be touring around the Tumhulau, possibly at the end of May, early June. So lots and lots is happening. We've now got a land declaration signed. We now have an MOU signed, a repository for Sinixt artifacts. This is great. This is a good season for us. So thank you everybody for coming. I don't know, Skylar, if you have parting words.
Yeah, so there's nothing that I can say that wasn't said better than Marilyn or KL here. But what I do want to say is thank you for sharing your stories. Thank you for sharing your hope. And
Woo!